All right, so we are in the Nemuke Yosef, and this is going to be really complicated stuff. We're going to have to keep a good accounting. Let me just summarize what the complicated issues are going to be. Okay, so again, the discussion is that a gangster comes and is forcing a Jew to hand over money. Okay, so there are a number of different permutations. One of the questions we have to ask is whether the money you are being forced to give to save yourself is your money when you could have given, he's being forced to give Reuven's money and he could have given his own money, but he was forced to give his money and he gave Reuven's money, or they were forcing him to give Reuven's money and he gave Reuven's money. And of course, did you show the money or did you hand the money? Okay. And then something that falls in the middle between showing and handing is bringing it from far away. And all of this is going to be in the Rif, all the different permutations and lots of big machlokasin. Based on our Gemara, and our Gemara, there's a lot of ambiguities, which gives room for the Rishonim. So, in order to really get back into it, I suggest we're going to start the Nemuke Yosef from not from the beginning, but if you go back to in the regular Nemuke Yosef pages, it's on Mem Gimel of the Rif, but it's going to be in the middle of the Nemuke Yosef, where he says, Echtov Perushi, I'm sorry. Okay. Amar HaMachaber. It's a little more than halfway down in the Nemuke Yosef. We're back to Mem Aleph. We did this, but we can't start in the middle. We got to run through and start from there again.
Mem
okay, so we're in the Dape HaRif, it's on Daf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. If you have the old-fashioned Rif, if you don't have the old-fashioned Rif, if you have the new one, so then you got to just find Bava Kama Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, and it's going to be the towards the beginning of the Gemara's Perush. There's a piece that starts with the Gemara, and the Rif and the Nemuke Yosef starts commenting, and the first Dibur HaMatchil you're looking for is Libei Avyune Shem Makom Im Natal V'Nosam Biyad. It's in that section, but it's further down. And again, we really need everybody to be following inside because this is really complicated.
Mem Gimel Amud Aleph from what?
Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. Mem Gimel Amud Aleph in the Dape HaRif.
Right.
Okay. And the Nemuke Yosef on the left side, it's a little more than halfway down. It says Amar HaMachaber. Yeah, right. At 3 lines after that.
I got it. Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah. Amar HaMachaber.
L'dat HaRif. We're going to review ourselves again what the Rif said. Okay, where the Rif he'll write it, but the Rif said like this. We saw the Rif inside. We got to remember it because it was a while ago and it's complicated. So, Amar HaMachaber das HaRif. Shenosa v'nosan biyad chayev. Afilu ansuhu al mamon zeh, meaning they demanded specific money, i.e., they demanded Shimon's money, and Reuven handed it to them bayad. So the Rif wrote his chayiv, and that's going to be a big. That's going to be one of the issues here. Is if they demand specific money, am I also chayiv, or I'm only chayiv? See, everybody would agree that if they demand, let's what everybody agrees. They come to Reuven and they say, "Give us money or we'll kill you." And Reuven goes, and instead of giving his money, he gives Shimon's money. So everybody agrees that's Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. That's the extreme case. All right. The next case is that they say, "Give us money," and he shows them Shimon's money. That's already not so simple. Okay, that's going to be a machlokas because they demand he could have given them his money, but on the other end he didn't hand them Shimon's money. He just showed them Shimon's money. Okay, but what happens if they demanded specific money? They demanded Shimon's money, and he handed them Shimon's money. Again, that's going to be a machlokas. The Rif holds that if they even if they demanded Shimon's money, which might have said, hey, they demanded Shimon's money, so all he did is I gave them what they demanded. Is that called Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero? So we'll have to see, why would you call that Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero? They come to the guy, hold a gun in his head, give us Shimon's money or we'll kill you. So he's not, I mean, is that Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero? So we'll see why it might be. Different scenarios. Anyway, so let's go again. So the Rif says, Nosa v'nosan biyad chayev afilu ansuhu al mamon zeh, meaning they demanded Shimon's money and he handed them Shimon's money, he's chayev. Im kain kitanya bi'ahu v'hahi here patur. So we have a din that says that if they only showed the money, if he showed them Shimon's money, he's patur. Leslan lemiftar ele kahaygav nadafka. The only way he could be patur. So now here's the dialectic. They demand Shimon's money. So the distinction is going to be when he hands them Shimon's money, chayev. But if he showed them Shimon's money, he's patur, because they demanded Shimon's money. All he did is he showed it, and therefore he's going to be patur. Aval. But if that's true, so now we've got to decide, what are we going to do when they didn't demand Shimon's money? They demanded Reuven's money, and he gave them Shimon's, or he showed them Shimon's. Says the Rif, Avalim ansuhu stam vehera Bmamon Chavero, even though he didn't hand them Shimon's money, all he did is he showed them Shimon's money. Since they demanded money, and he could have given them his money, and he showed Shimon's money, he's going to be chayev. Sharei Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Umilsa de mistavrahi, says the Nemuke Yosef. This makes a lot of sense. Why? The kolhecha de Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero chayev lishlume afilu behera shelo natal v'nosan biyad.
Right.
Okay, v'zeh pirish Rava. That's what Rava meant in the Gemara when Rava said im hera me atzmo kinasa v'nosan biyad. Don't interpret that to mean he just on his own went to show them. No, hera me atzmo means that they wanted money, and hera me atzmo, he decided to show them Shimon's money. Says Rava, that's like handing Shimon's money. All right, so at this point we've got to summarize. So according to the Rif, when they demand Shimon's money, it makes a difference whether you handed it, and even though they demanded Shimon's money, if you handed it, you're chayev. But if you showed it, you're patur. But if they demanded your money, so to speak, and as they demanded money, then even if you showed them Shimon's money, if you handed them Shimon's money, of course you're chayev, right? Because you could have given them your money and you gave them Shimon's money. But the chiddush is that even if you showed them Shimon's money, that's also called Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero, and that's built on Rava that says Hera Me Atzmo. That's what Hera Me Atzmo means according to Rava. Okay, so this is the Rif's position. The Kol Halacha Meida Shapir Kipirusha. Okay, so the Nemuke Yosef says if you go through the sugya, it sounds like the Rif's pshat. The Avagav De'efshar Lidchot Dechuyeninu. You can argue with the Rif and say differently. But it would be dichuyu, okay? That again, it could be that it could be that Bmamon Chavero, and here we're going to have a shita that if they demand Shimon's money, then even if you hand them Shimon's money, you're going to be patur, and that we'll see in a minute. That could be coming from the cup case where we pattered the guy who had the cup, okay? But it could also go in other directions. Anyway, so let's continue now in the Rif. In the Nemuke Yosef. Again, we did this last time, but now we're getting back into it. Okay. Uma shehik shekosha alav. So what's the problem with the Rif Shita? What's the problem with the Rif Shita? Kosha alav me'od zot de kasa de kaspa. Because we said in the case of the shomer who had the cup, and we say if he was a poor guy, then it's clear they only came for the cup. And we pattered him even though he handed it. So it sounds like if you hand it, if they came for specific money, you're going to be patur even if you hand it. And the Rif said you're only patur if you show it, but you're going to be chayiv if you hand it. The kasha asu patur. Afagav diyav biyadayim. Okay, that's one kasha on the Rif. The yoter yesh min hatmiya. Ech lo hirgish harav ba v'lo chashva lenegdo me'uma. And how did the Rif ignore that? How did the Rif ignore the cup case? Lachein nirali. So what's the answer? Hayapashut lefanov zal delo damya klal. The case of the cup is not comparable. Why? Velo rayahi lahanach. Why? Here's what we said last time. The hapikadonu v'shomer shiny. So the Rif says that case of the cup has no bearing on our discussion. There's a difference whether they come to a shomer and say, "Give us the cup that you have bishmira," where even if he hands it, he's going to be pater. Whereas if they come to a stama guy who is sitting around and they hold a gun and he says, "We want you to go give us Shimon's money," and he hands it, he's going to be chayav. V'chein matzati shekasav harosh zal. The Rosh said the same thing. Here's the Lashon HaRosh. I think we saw this Rosh. Hadi amrinan also adaiti de kasva upater. Afal gav de amrinan le'elim nosav and nosam biyad chayev. The shomer gave it biyad. Afal gav de ansuhu akum. Shomer shiny. De adaita da hachi afkede gabe. Part of the shmira contract is he also adaita de kasa adkan l'shono. That if they came to steal the cup, of course, the shomer is going to give it. Okay? Because that's part of Shmira. Shmira means I'm watching it, but I don't have to give up my life for it. Okay? But if they come and stam force you to give Shimon's money, you can show it to them, but you can't hand it to them. But I mean, what do you mean you can't hand it? If you hand it, you're going to be chai. V'kivin de Gemara Shalano Ashe Kedas Harav Zal, meaning like the Nemukeyos, like the Rif, Lo Chayish Ayerushalmi. The Lakame. So there's a Yerushalmi, and I believe I sent it on the chat. I'll just read you the Yerushalmi. If you don't want to bother to go to the chat, I'll read it to you. And what we're probably going to do is I'm going to probably send you a text with this Yerushalmi after we finish. Not this time. For next time, we're going to see this Yerushalmi inside with the Meforshim. But the language of the Yerushalmi, I'll just read it to you if you don't have it in front of you on the chat. Tzni, we learn, Yisrael sha'ansuhu ako, v'notlu mimenu Bmamon Chavero b'fanav, potter. Meaning, what that means is that if their goyim come and they hold a gun at your head, and basically what they're telling you is, don't intervene. We're about to take this money, and you don't intervene. You sit there and let them take it. The Gemara says you're potter. However, and that sounds pretty pashut, but the continuation is natal the nosan biyad chayev. But if they forced you to hand them the money, now what does this sound like? Does it sound like Bmamon Stam? Does it sound like they wanted Shimon's money or they wanted money? Again, I'll read the words of the Yerushalmi. Yisrael shansu akum v'notlo mimenu Bmamon Chavero b'fanav potter, notal v'nosan lahem chayev. So it's not clear
like
whether they demanded money or they demanded Chavero's money. What do you want to say, Daniel?
It sounds like since the halacha doesn't change the subject, it sounds like we're still talking about Bmamon Chavero.
But that they wanted Bmamon Chavero or that they took Bmamon Chavero?
In the first case, notlu mimenu, they took from him the Bmamon Chavero. This guy, this Israel, had money from his neighbor, right? But they took it from Befanav. He's potter. Bubble, not all the nosan lahem, but if this Israel, goes miyozmato, from whatever, out of his volition, he gives it to them because he's afraid of them. He did an action. The first case, he was passive. They took it. The second case is he was active. He gave it.
That's clear, but you're not focusing on what their agenda was. Was their agenda money, and they took Shimon's money, or he handed them Shimon's money, or was their agenda money?
Well, we don't know. The only money that is being spoken about is Bmamon Chavero. We have no idea what other Bmamon there was. So we have
excellent. Continues the Yerushalmi. You said great. Continues the Yerushalmi. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Hada de Tamar b'sha'amar lo Bmamon stam. Everything that we just learned is only talking about their demand for Mamon Stam. Aval Mamon Ploni, but if they came and they demanded Mamon Ploni,
Wow.
so then you are Potter Afilu not Alvinosan Biyad.
Wow. That's
okay. So what does that sound like? It sounds like the Rif or not the Rif?
That doesn't sound like the Rif.
Sounds like the opposite of the Rif. The Rif said that even if they demand Mamon Ploni, the only time Mamon Ploni makes a difference is if you show them. Right? Remember, the Rif held that if they demand money, even if you show them Mamon Shimon, you're going to be chayiv. Kal v'chomer if you hand it to them. When am I potter for showing? When they demanded Mamon Ploni. All right? But if they demand Mamon Ploni and I hand it, I'm going to be chayiv. Okay? And the Yerushalmi seems to say very clearly that Mamon Ploni, afilu notl v'nos and biyad, potter. Okay? So that's the Yerushalmi that the Nemukei Yosef is alluding to. Okay? You guys follow? Because go back into the Nemukei. Now that you know that Yerushalmi, go back to the Nemukei Yosef.
If I may just ask, I mean, I don't understand how Rabbi Yossi is teaching the ratio of this member.
The ratio is ambiguous, and he's saying that din only applies with Mamon Stam and not with Mamon Zu. There's nothing to contradict
that. Why does it mention there Bmamon Chavero? And it just says
because he no, again, that's not a question. It's not a question. The Gemara gives a general statement, an ambiguous general statement, and a Tana follows up and makes it clear. That's not a question.
But it should have then just said Mamon.
Daniel, that's not a good question. I'm sorry, not a good question. Okay, because because we're talking about giving. They either took Bmamon Chavero or he gave Bmamon Chavero, but it's not clear what they demanded.
Okay,
you got to understand. When we read the scenario, it's not clear what they demanded, and therefore Rabbi Yossi is coming to say, what did they demand? It depends what they demanded. Did they demand Mamon? In which case, if they demanded Mamon, so then we have the din of a distinction between showing and handing. But if they demanded Mamon Shimon, then you're putter even if you hand it. That's the Yerushalmi. So that sounds like a contradiction to the Rif. So says the Nemukei Yosef, Kivan de Gemara Shalanu Osya Kadas Harav, i.e., we saw that the only time you're only putter in a case of a pikadon when you hand it by yad. But if they're demanding mamon, that's what Rava holds, that's hera be'atzmo, is you're going to be chai for hera if they demanded mamon stam. If they demanded mamon zu, you're going to be putter for hera, but you're still going to be chayiv for nosan, and that's not like the Yerushalmi. Okay, so Rav lo chayishli ayushalmi. The Rif didn't bother. He didn't paskin like the Yerushalmi. In other words, the Nemukei Yosef is saying that the Rif understood there is a machlokes between our Gemara Bavli about the case of Mana Shel Shimon, and the Yerushalmi holds that if they demand Mamon Shimon, you're putter even if you hand. But the Rif learned our Gemara, but from the Kasha to Kaspa, that if you and Rava that you're going to be chayev if you hand money, even though they demanded specific money. Okay, so that the Rif doesn't pay attention to the Yerushalmi, meaning he doesn't pay attention. He doesn't hold like the Yerushalmi. The kosher kenshi yacholomar nami the pikaron mayri Yerushalmi ukamoshe kasav bifnim. There, we could also understand the Yerushalmi. Since the Yerushalmi is so ambiguous, we might be able to limit the Yerushalmi to a pikadon. Okay, but if it wasn't a pikadon, then even mamon stam, even mamon ploni, you're going to be chayev for showing. That's another way out. Again, what the Nemukei Yosef wants to say is the Rif is very clear. You have a Yerushalmi that sounds against him. Either our Gemara is with him, and you might even be able to massage the Yerushalmi to also be with him. Again, we will see next time. I'll send it to you on a document. That Yerushalmi with the Meforshim of the Yerushalmi, okay? Because they're later than the Nemukei Yosef, obviously. Okay. Okay. Umihu. Everybody see where I am now. I'm on the fourth narrow line. Umihu. Masha kosav harayvet zal nearly nachon miod. The nehid lo amrinan yomus val yisav yitain biyad el yishalem. Mikol makom me'echetesa she is chayiv l'shalem kivin she'en lo lomus alav. V'gam lo bolo ha'anos miyad acher el al oso mamon sheyachduhu lo beferush. So again, he's explaining why a pikadon should be potter, and it could even be. And now he's explaining the shita of that argues on the Nemuke Yosef is that maybe if they're holding a gun at your head and they demand Momon Shimon, are you chayv to give up your life? Okay, yeah, right. So keeping the right the nehidalo amrin yomus val yisav yitain biyad. We're not saying die instead of handing it, all right? But you got to pay. But saying, but wait a minute, if I don't have to give up my life, why should I have to pay? Meaning, I was allowed to save my life with it. Okay, so there seems to be a machlokas here. V'nirli lomar, del korchach. So now this is the Nemuke Yosef trying to summarize how he sees it. Ki mechayvinan nosav and nosan biyad lo ukminan lohula akum iluye. We're talking where the goy isn't there. The goy is not there. We're not standing. The goy is there in front of the mamon and tells Ruvain, hand me Shimon's mamon. Right? Why? Because remember we talked about that if the goy is there, the money's gone. Okay? We said that even if the guy showed him the money, it's already gone. Upater. So we got to talk about the fact that the goy is not there. So the goy is not in front of Shimon's money, but he's forcing Ruvain to get him Shimon's money. We call ukme matzil ishtamute midei. Dahave atre nahara. Remember the case where if the goy is on one side of the river and the Jew is on the other side of the river, so then the goy has no access to it, and then if you bring it to him, if you hand it to him, you will be chayiv. So if the goy is not there, so think about what he's alluding to here is like this: you're sitting in your house, and the goy comes, holds a gun at your head, and says, "Give us Shimon's, go get us Shimon's money." What are your options?
Either, there's show it to him, go hand it to him, bring it. You have all three options.
No, they're not there. You can't show it to them because it's far away.
Oh, so bring it to him. That's the only option, really.
Okay, keep an open mind about that. Okay, Kain nirali al das Rabbeinu Agadol Zal. V'derech Rabbeinu Hai. Okay, so that's all the Nemuke Yosef. Now we're going to have the Rabbeinu Hai Gaon that argues. V'derech Rabbeinu Hai Gaon b'mishpetei hashavuos asher lo kederech Rashi v'harabah Zal shekoslu sham notal v'nosan biyad chayiv b'delo ukminu alei ela sha'ansuhu leharos stam. V'hu notal v'nosan biyad. Here's the scenario. They forced him, show us where the money is. And instead of just showing it, he actually handed it to them. So everybody understands that that's grounds to be chayiv. All they wanted is show us where it is. And the guy went and he took it and he handed it to them. So that's much worse. V'zel l'shono, hamara Bmamon Chavero, v'hanose v'nosen biyad, din echad l'shnehem. Showing it and giving it is the same. She'im me'atzmon chayavim, v'im machmas ones peturin. Meaning, if he did it without being forced, then he's going to be chayiv. But if he was forced, he's patur. What does that mean? This is what this means. Iman suhu laharos. They forced him to show the money. The nosan biyad, he gave it to them. Chayiv. Hachika Omar. Iman suhu laharos v'notav v'nosan biyad. Chayiv uvedilo ukmini ale. It's got to be clear that they're not standing there. right? Otherwise, there should be no difference because then handing it is no different than handing it is no different. Ad kan l'shona mashma le'zah. Here it goes. Here's the summary. Lamaisa. De be'ones be'ukminu alei. If the goyim are there and they're forcing you to give them the money, patur. V'hainu kegon shepiresh lo mamon ploni. Im kain kishechayev hu shansu al mamon stam. Kipirish Rashi. Everything here is talking when they just want money. Okay, because what happened here? All right, they're standing there, there's money, and they force him to give the money. He could give other money. They don't care about any, they want money. And when they want money, you can get away with any money. So if you gave Shimon's money when you could have gotten away with any money, you're chayiv. Okay? Kipirish Rashi zal, v'harabal zal. V'osilu shapir ahida kasa de kaspa. Why? Shehu kimamon zeh kipashta. Meaning, according to them, it's not because it was a pikadon. It's because they didn't want stam money. Meaning they're saying like this: if there's money, and they point to the money that you're sitting there with it, and they say we want this money, and they're there, even if you give it to them, you're potter. Why? Because it's kalya. The money's gone. They're there. They don't need you to get it. Okay, so that's their opinion. Ela shekasha lahem me'od hera Bmamon Chavero potter. So when are you potter for showing? When are you potter for showing? Demairi nami b'mamon stam. Dum yedeseifa denosa v'nosa. Ve'amai potter afilu ba'ones. Ha Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. At the end of the day, they want Bmamon stam, okay? And you are and by showing it to them, you're saving yourself. So again, it's very confusing here. What's the scenario where you're going to be potter for showing? And when you're going to be chayiv for showing. L'chayra, everything is Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. The yoser doma ledina de garmi. In other words, by showing it, normally we say showing it is groma. But here it's not groma. Because if you don't show it, they're going to kill you. So you're by showing it, you're directly causing, I'll say like this, you're directly causing indirect damage. That's garmi. The chayiv. Mili grama b'nezikin de potter. It's more chayiv than regular grama. De habori hezeka. At the end of the day, when you show them the money, is there any question that they're going to take it? Is there any question they're going to take the money?
No, of course not.
Kiri Amrinan, we didn't do this Gemara. The Gemara is later on. It's further on. We didn't do this. But the Gemara there says, when in the Gemara that says, Mata uzeh, is a what's it called? I wrote down the term. There's an animal that falls into a trap. An animal falls into a trap. What does a hunter do? Does the hunter have mercy on an animal after it falls into the trap?
No, I wouldn't be a hunter if
once it's in the trap, he's going to do whatever it takes. So we're saying like this. What the Gemara said is, Af Momon Shel Yisrael Kivich and Nafali De Akum Shuvein Merachmim Alav. Once the goy gets the Jewish money, or once the goy wants the Jewish money, he has access to the Jewish money. There's no Rachmanus, okay, and therefore by showing it, right, it's worse than just Stama Grama, and it's not like Mishasa Kalbo B'Chavero, which is called a Grama. Mishasa Kalbo B'Chavero is when I incite a dog against you and he bites you. So I'm putter. All right, because it was groma. Why is that different? The Shema lo yaskenu. Okay, the chashvina le groma. Because even though I'm inciting the dog, he might do it, he might not do it. Aval zeshekvar ra'u also. Once he showed them the money, can nafal biyadam dami. Kevin sheyacholin likach also. So what he's saying like this: once I showed them the money, I basically gave them the money. You know, so what he's arguing for is that you should be chayiv for mareh, just like you should be chayiv for giving. Because once you show it, is there any question they're going to take it?
It's the same thing that
once you show it, they're going to take it. So therefore, it's garmi. He says, showing it is not just grama, because they're definitely going to take it. Okay, so therefore, he wants showing to be chayiv, and he wants showing to be chayiv, even in Mamon Stam. Meaning they didn't ask for. I'm sorry, even for Mamon Zeh. Right? He wants it to be chayiv because when you show it, they're definitely going to take it. V'od kosher lahem, ha de'imhera lahem me'atzmo, k'moshe notal v'nosan biyad b'chayiv. De'al korcha chalo motzi mayri de'hera ba'ones uve'mamon zeh. When it says the words imhera me'atzmo, what does it mean, Rava? When Rava said hera me'atzmo, what's the scenario of hera me'atzmo? What do you mean he showed it on his own? So it certainly can't be that he said. Rava said hera me'atzmo is like giving. Well, what's the scenario? Dal korchach lo matzi de mayri de hera ba'ones uve'mamon zeh de ha'amrit potter. Everybody agrees that if they are demanding Reuven's money, Shimon's money, and you show them Shimon's money that they demanded, you're certainly potter. Elavadai, what does it mean? Below onus Mairi, ukadapirish Rashi Zal, that's what Rashi said. In other words, if you're showing them the money, not because they're holding a gun at your head, you're showing them the money just because you want to do them a favor, you want them to like you, that's, according to Rashi, that's the extreme hera me'atzmo. We're understanding hera me'atzmo. Okay, we're understanding hera me'atzmo. He showed it to save his own money. But Rashi didn't learn like that. Rashi learned hera me'atzmo is there was no onus. The imkein maikom mashmalon tanina dainu maslisin di machmas hagazlon. So of course, if they came because remember that was the case of that a gazlan came, and a gazlan stole money. All right, and so the gazlan stole karka. So normally the gazlan steals karka, and the king takes away the karka, it's your putter. But if the only reason they took away Shimon's karka is because they're after Reuven owes a big debt, and they came after Reuven and they took Shimon's karka, you're chayev because that's machmas hagazlan. Okay, but if it wouldn't be machmas hagazlan, you're going to be putter. Okay, so he's saying that. So what he's saying is that there is, Rashi holds that the only time you're going to be chayav for showing is if you want an onus. But if you were an onus, and you then showing is also putter. Again, not like the rif. Okay, this is umasher kasafti bifnim b'shem hara'ov rabbo nami maskimim ledas rabbeinu hagadol kisfaras harosh the pikadon. He's saying in a pikadon it's clear that you're going to be putter. Umitoch haloshon nire shim ansu akum liyisrael. Here's one of the summaries. Ansu akum liyisrael ve'omru ten lanu mamon ploni shel ploni chavercha. So the goy comes and says to Reuven, give us Shimon's money, and otherwise we're going to kill you. Afilu nosa v'nosan biyad patur. Lekule alma. Why? Shehare machmas oso mamon bolo haones. Ki ahida kasa de kaspa. That is what they're holding. V'imkein kosher li amai hutzruchu lemeimer taimo v'pikoron shapatur lefi sheyodo kiyad bailim kamo shekasa bifnim. Meaning, why do you need to make it a function of pikoron? L'chayra, if you hold, if you hold that when they force you to give Mamon Shimon, and you hand them Mamon Shimon, your putter. So then the case of the kasa has nothing to do with pikadon. Even if it wasn't a pikadon, the din would be the same. So why did these Rishonim make it sound like it's because of pikadon? Lefikach nirali. Here's again the dafka kishamamon chavero biyodo. Reuven is holding Shimon's money, not as a pikadon. The onsim also alav mamish, as amrinan shemachmas also mamon bolo haones. So Reuven is holding Shimon's money. Doesn't matter whether it's a bikaron or not. And they come to Reuven and they say, "Give us Shimon's money, or we will kill you." Why are they threatening Reuven? They want Shimon's money. Why are they threatening Reuven? Are you guys following the logic here? Why are they threatening Reuven?
For Shimon's money.
It's not a pikadon, but Reuven's holding Shimon's money. Let me read the words again. Davka kishem Bmamon Chavero biyado. Shimon's money is in Reuven's hands. The onsin also alav mamish, and they're holding a gun at Reuven's head and say, "Give us Shimon's money, or we will kill you." Azamrina machmas also Bmamon balo haones, and therefore he's pater, because the only reason they're holding a gun at Reuven's head is because he's holding Shimon's money. They want Shimon's money, and Reuven, who gave them Shimon's money rather than die, is pater.
So according to
Wait, let's just finish the contrast. Aval kishe'ein hamomon biyado. But what happens if Reuven is not holding Shimon's money, but they come to Reuven and they say, "Get us Shimon's money, or we'll kill you." Ein chiluk bein ten li mamon ploni shel ploni chavercha lahoshit la pekia amir zeh betrain avre nahara. Doesn't matter whether they said, "Go get Shimon's money," or they say, "Extend to us this basket of grapes, which is on the other side of the river." Vigora minei mipnei she'eno akshav olav kamo bepekia amir. Hilkach apechai gavna chayev ledas rabbeinu. You're going to be chayev if you go get it. The kiven she'eno biyado. Ein ha'ones ba machmas oso mamon. Mikri b'chayev kanal daita. So he's making it this again. This is complicated, but he's saying like this. Again, he's trying to support the Rif. Okay, that basically the Rif's approach. Okay, the Rif's approach is, let me just hear it. There's the Rif and there's the Rav Hai Gaon. So Rav Hai Gaon held that that there's a difference whether they say bring Mammon or bring Shimon's Mammon. Okay, so the Rif holds that it doesn't matter whether they say bring Mammon or bring Shimon's money. If you hand it biyadayim, you're chayiv. And the only reason the cup was pater, which is Mammon Shimon, is because it was a pikadon. But the Rav Hai Gaon doesn't hold like that. The Rav Hai Gaon holds that you're pater even biyadayim because they're demanding Shimon's money. Okay, and that's basically the machlokas, Rav Hai Gaon and the Rif. Now, we're going to see, let me just see if we're going to hear it here or I got to tell it to you outside. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now let's just go. Okay. So let's go back into the Gemara because now he quotes Dori v'amte. That was another case. If you remember, the other case is, let's find it inside. Okay. It's at the top of the page in the Rif. It was the case of the wine. Okay. Is that Ahu Gavra de Achve Achamra de Rebbe Pinchas u de Rav Meri b'nei Rav Chizda. Okay, so they were forced to show the wine. I'm going back to the top of the page, the case, because now the Rebbe doesn't talk about that case. They were forced to show the wine. Okay, and after they showed the wine, Amri le Dori ve'amti b'hadan, bring it now to the palace. Ve'amti b'hadam at the top of the page in the Rif. Ve'amti b'hadayu. And they brought it to the palace. So they were forced to show it, and then they brought it to the palace. Now remember, according to some opinions, if they were forced to show it, they're pater. They're only chayiv if they handed it by yad. What were they forced to? They were forced to show it. But then they brought it. So also the kami de Rav Ashi, patre. Rav Ashi pattered. But they handed it over by yad. And Amar Lahu, Hani Mili Dehecha Delo, Kimni Alehu. Since they were already standing there, wait, how did they get there? They got there because he showed it to them. Showing it to them is pater. That's what you got to say. Showing them is pater. And once he showed it to them, Mikli Kalya, okay, and it's gone, and therefore now that you brought it, handing it is okay. So said the Gemara, see, but the question is what is this Gemara an attack on? So the Gemara is bringing this as an attack on the opinion that said that when you hand it over, you're chayiv. Okay, it's an attack on what said you're chayiv. So if you say that you're chayiv for handing it over, even ba'ones, all right, then And remember, this is Mamon Zu, this is a specific Mamon. They said, we want you to show. So they were forced to show specific Mamon, and they showed it, and then they brought it, and Rav Ashi said Potter. And they attacked Rav Ashi because it says that if you handed it, you're chayev. But they were forced. So you see, the Gemara assumes that handing it ba'ones is going to be chayev. And the only way that Rav Ashi wiggled out of it was because once he showed it, then handing it is not a problem. But Enochinami, if he wouldn't have showed it and they just were forced on Mamon Zu to hand, they would be chayev. That's what it sounds like from the Gemara. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so that's basically the Shakla Vitaria of the Gemara. Okay? All right, so let's go back now. Let's see how the Nemukei Yosef deals with that in our context. So we're back to the Nemukei Yosef Dibur Matzil Dori V'Yamti. So v'holech Imanu El Beit HaMelech Hani Mili.
Where are we on the page?
It's just where I left off in the Nemukei Yosef. It's about halfway into the Y lines. The Dori V'Amti So v'holech Imanu El Beit HaMelech Hani Mili is only when. Hani Mili, when do I say that you're chayav for bringing it? What did the Gemara say? You see where I am?
No. Dari Ve'amte, that's where
yes,
you are?
right after that. Hani Mili. What did they say? When do we say you're chayav for bringing it? When they're not there. But if they're already on the money, so then it's gone, and therefore when you bring it, it's not a problem. The imnasa v'notan biyad.
Beyond.
What?
Oh, sorry.
See where I am? Imnosa v'nosan biyad chayiv hecha delo ukme lehu la'akum ala mamon meikara. The goyim aren't there, and you hand it, you're chayiv. Okay, al yedei ones, because you were forced. Ela holech v'nosein lahem. Aval hacha, in the case of the wine of Rav Mary, mashma de ukminu al yayin nisraf hayayin. Once they're there, the yayin's gone. V'ahishait to potter. So once he brought it to them, which was grama, because he only showed it, then the wine's gone. And then ki amtinu didei amti. So once he brings it, he's bringing their wine, because they basically got the wine. The wine is there, they got it. Okay, that's Rashi. Vehevi ariv zal raya lidvarav kineged ha'gaonim zal. Remember, the gaonim means Rav Hai Gaon. Okay, the gaonim means Rav Hai Gaon. Okay, and Rav Hai Gaon argues on the Rif. The Rav Hai Gaon holds that if they demand Shimon's money, even if he gives it biyadayim, he's pater, because they demanded Shimon's money. Well, here it sounds like that if even they're demanding Shimon's money, and the only reason he's pater for bringing it is because they were there already. But if they wouldn't be there, it sounds from this Gemara that even though they demanded Shimon's money, if Reuven brings the money, he's going to be chayiv. Shekoslu she'im ansu lahavi vehevi pater mehacha de'im isa de'im nasa v'nosan biyad de'amrin and chayev mayri b'delo onis. The only time and if you're chayev, only when you did it without an onus, im kain may hukshu hacha l'Ravashi the pater lahu gavra dilma ki patre Ravashi mishum da'onusu. Again, it goes by the Ravashi patred the guy, and the Gemara attacked, and the Amorim attacked Ravashi for patring. But wait a minute, but the guy was an onus. And again, Ravashi answered that once he brought it, it's like their money. But before Ravashi's answer, we're in a case where they demanded specific money, and the assumption, and they brought it, and the Gemara assumed they should be chayev. So you see that when they demand specific money, all right, even and you give it to them biyad, you're chayev. It's exactly like the Rif, okay, and not like Rav Hai Gaon. Devare de mifteri hachi islam lemeimar v'heishiv alav harav bala itur. So how do you explain that? Dehach raya lesa. Why? Devare ansu meikara b'mamon stam. See, we assumed that the goyim were demanding the wine of Rav Mary. But maybe the goyim were demanding money. We want money. And they brought him to the wine of Rav Mary. So that's not Mamon Zu anymore. That's Mamon Stam. So that's certainly Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Miu Basar de Achvilahu. Miansu Vaday leka onis. V'havi leka mishansu b'mamon stam. The natal v'nasan biyad. Chayev. So they wanted Mamon stam, and he brought him to Rav Mary. But once he brought him to Rav Mary, and then he picks it up and hands it to them, so then that's an onus on Mamon stam, and he gave it to them. So he should be chayev. All right, and that's the shaklavitaria about whether you're chayev or not. I want to just see here whether it's here or I'm going to have to say it outside. Okay, let's continue. Let's see inside more Nemuke Yosef. Okay. The next case was the case of the wool or the grapes. Okay, and the Gemara said there, we have it in inside. Maybe we'll just pick it up inside again. Okay, go back into the Rif 2, 4, 7 lines into the wide. The last two lines on the last two words on the line are Omar Lo. This is the case, if you remember, of the grapes and the wool.
Where are you now, Rabbi?
I'm back in the Rif on the 7th wide line at the end of the 7th wide line.
On Daf Mem Gimel Beis?
Yes, that's where we haven't moved.
7th wide line at the end.
Omar Lo, here's the case.
Honor.
Omar Lo Hoshit. Omar Lo Anas.
Right.
Hoshit li pikia mirze o eshkol shalanavim zeh. Hand me this, we'll call it this basket of grapes. An anas means at the threat of death.
Right.
The Hoshit lo, and he gave it chayiv. Now, what's the problem? Is the goy there? Yes. So that's a kasha back on the whole case of Rav Ashi, because the goy is there, and he said, "Give it," and I gave it, and I'm chayiv. The goy is there. Uparkina, what's the teretz? We're talking where the goy is not there. The goy has no access to it. Chayiv. So you see here, the goy had no access to it. All right, and he forced you. Okay, and
but you mean the goy was basically standing with his precision gun, and the Jew had no place to hide.
No, wait, the goy had no access to the money.
Yeah, but the goy is standing. Harry, the goy is threatening the Jew to kill him, right? The
Correct.
Jew has access to the money. I'm just trying to understand the case. The Jew has access to the money. The goy doesn't. So the Gemara says betray Avrei Nara, meaning the goy is on the other side. Whatever
Meaning, no, the goy is on the other side of the. No, I see what you're saying. No. The goy and the Jew are on the same. No, I'm sorry. No. No. Right. The goy is on one side. The Jew is on the other side. The grapes are on the other side. And the goy is saying to the Jew, if you don't hand it over to me across the river, I'm going to kill you.
I'm going to shoot. He's going to shoot the Jew, and he has enough of a weapon system, whatever, to reach the Jew, and the Jew has nowhere to hide.
Correct.
So you have a lot of okimtas here.
Well, no, but that's the case. That's clearly the case. I mean, wait. You got to know what's negotiable.
How is the Jew going to hand the stuff over to the there is a way for the Jew to reach over to the river?
Apparently so. That's what the goy is demanding. Hoshit. And that's what the Gemara proves. Hoshit.
Well, how come the guy doesn't come and get it himself? I mean, like, what's the tray of? No, I'm saying now. What I'm trying to say is, what does the tray Avrei Nara make this case into chayiv if really there is no technical issue for the guy to get the stuff if he only wanted to? It's no different than him standing at my door, really.
The answer to your question is, we are trying to undermine the teretz that was given up on top, where Rav Ashi, where the reason why Rav Ashi patred the guy is because kivendu kimnu iluye mikla kalya. If the goy is there, it's as if he's got it and it's gone. Right. But if he doesn't have immediate access to it, it's not gone, and that makes you chayiv if you give it to him.
Wow, but that's like.
Of course, in every case, when you got to assume that certainly when he says go far away, but the goy comes. Let's go back to our Shomer case. The goy walks into the house and he holds a gun at the guy's head.
Okay, That's straightforward.
No, but could the goy get it without the guy?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a difference whether you give it when the goy could also get it, in which case, right? In which case, you're not doing something as bad. That's mikle kalya. Here,
Right.
the only reason they said trey avrinar is to avoid mikle kalya. They want to avoid mikle kalya. That's all.
Oh,
They
but
avoid mikle kalya.
it's a slight difference from the
It's a terror. It's
a terror.
obviously, if you don't hold the shita that you're holding, it's an attack on a shita, and as with Gemara always does. According to me, that has to be the scenario. According to me, the scenario has to be that they're on both sides of the river. But of course, if you hold that you're always going to be chayev, that you're chayev even when you hand it by yad. Remember, there is a shita that when you come. So there are two ways to understand that. Either they didn't demand specific money, or they demanded specific money, but they didn't have access to it. In either case, it justifies chayev. That's all. Okay, look, that's the next. Look at the Nemukei Yosef. Chayev. Afal gav dekaya kum al hamamon. Hold the nosam and nosam biyad chayev. That's the kasha. The goy is there because he's saying, give me this basket of grapes. It sounds like he's there. And why are you chayev? It should be mikli kalya. So that's a proof that as long as you actually hand him the money, you are chayev. And the answer was trei avrinar. Aku mitzad zeh veha amir mitzad zeh. Di'ilo yoyve nehale lo matzi honestly mishkali. He wouldn't have been able to get it. The Rabbeinu alfa zal mistaya leferusho mehad chayev. Afal gav da honestly lebatar hachi b'shamat mina demand shakale lemamona de chavre. Here's the conclusion. Demand shakale lemamona de chavre. Umamti le biyade legabe anas. Anytime a Jew hands Shimon's money to the gangster, he is chayiv. I was forced. Afagav de anis. You're still chayiv. The loshna ansuhu lahavi vehevi veheshiv alav. The loshna ansuhu lahavi vehevi. Meaning, even if they're there and you hand it, or they're not there and you bring it, in both cases that's called chayiv. The heshiv alav rava less raya klal the hasam leka unsa the kiven de kai betrei avri nahara. Here's what Daniel wanted to say. You don't realize there's no onus there. Matzil ishtamute. Wait a minute, what's going on here? This is what you were alluding to, Daniel. The goy is on one side of the river. I'm on the other side of the river. And he's going to shoot an arrow at me if I don't hand him the grapes. I can get out of that. I'll just run away. I'll just run away without the grapes. So the fact that I handed it to him, that's why I'm chayiv. Okay? Matzil ishtamute mineh. Aval hechad ansu al Bmamon Chavero v'leka l'ishtamute. Afilu notav v'nosam b'yad potter. V'chein hilchasa ad kan l'shono. So again, here, this is the issue. The issue basically boils down to the question when the goy forces you to give specific money and you hand it to him. Ba'onus. Are you potter or not? I did it ba'onus. But on the other hand, I handed it. And he wanted specific money. So everybody agrees that if he demanded money and I handed Shimon's money, of course I'm chayiv. Why am I, of course I'm chayiv? Because I could have given him my money. And instead of giving him my money, I gave him Shimon's money. It only becomes tricky when the goy wants specifically Shimon's money. So then we get into a machlokas, whether if the goy wants Shimon's money and he's not standing on the money, but you have to give it to him. Okay, are you chayiv? Because at the end of the day, you were Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Or no, I had no choice. It was Shimon's money, and therefore I'm not chayiv. That's basically what we have the machlokas between the Rav Hai Gaon and the Nemukei Yosef. Okay, I think we're going to see the next piece in the Nemukei Yosef, but I'm going to send you a sheet because I think it's very kedai to see this Yerushalmi and how the Meforshim learn the Yerushalmi. And then we're going to get into a big sheet of Mekubetzes. Again, the issue here is, at what point do we call it Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero? And at what point do we say, no, he's not, he had no choice. He had no choice. That's not Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Okay?
I just want to ask the Rava that he's here 3 lines from the bottom. Is that
Yeah.
Rav Hai? Is that or is
I
that
think so, yeah. I think it is. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right.
So
We're both
basically-
have a good Shabbos. I know this is very complicated stuff. We'll try to straighten it out as we go through. We'll see more of the opinions. We'll see again. There's a couple of very interesting scenario issues coming up. Okay, and we will see it. So Bezrat Hashem, I'll send a sheet with the Yerushalmi and then the sheet of Mekubetzes for Sunday. Question, Daniel.
Yeah. I just wanted to as a summary, basically, the last 4 lines, basically, on this page, give us the nutshell of the machlokus.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
Right.
they do. Okay, I'm sorry. We will finish. I want to finish. There's a couple of important things still in the Nemukei Yosef coming up on the next page. So we're going to pick up the Nemukei Yosef on Sunday and probably the Yerushalmi. So we won't get to the Shita Mekubetzes on Sunday, I don't think. Okay, so try to have this Nemukei Yosef, and I'll send you out the Yerushalmi to before Shabbos. Okay, all 2.
Fascinating.